Hi everyone, Ryan here from Fight Game Analysis, and today we're going to be talking about the upcoming fight between Jan Blachowicz and Glover Teixeira. But before we jump into that, if you enjoyed the content, please go ahead and click on the like button and also subscribe to the channel. Really appreciate your support. Alright, big fight coming up. Main event, Jan Blachowicz is going to be defending his belt against Glover Teixeira. Now let me start off talking a little bit about Jan Blachowicz. Man, this guy kind of came out of nowhere in some regards. Comes into the UFC, loses 4 of his first 5 fights. Easy to write a man off at that point. But slowly but surely, he's working his game, building it up. And we see him go out there and snatch up the vacant belt after Jon Jones leads the light heavyweight division. Puts together an impressive performance and then goes out there and pulls the upset against Dominic Reyes. After Reyes had looked so impressive in his fight against Jon Jones. Right? Now that he's the champ, it's easy to go back and look at some of those fights and see the progression, see what he's done. You know, the man's impressive. The man is impressive. He's got a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He has grappling credentials, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu credentials before he really comes over to MMA. But now that you see him, I would say he's a striker. That's really what he likes to do. That's kind of been what's made him famous. It's what took him to the dance, so to speak. Right? You think about him going out there and smoking Luke Rockhold with the left hook off of the break. You think about him catching Corey Anderson with that nasty right hand and dropping him. You think about the damage that he's able to do to Dominic Reyes to win the belt. You think about the power that he's got. It's easy to think of him as a striker. Easy to think of him as a striker. And yet, in his last fight against Israel Adesanya, it wasn't the striking that helped him defend the belt. It was the grappling. Right? And it just reminds us, Jan's got a complete game, man. Jan is a complete fighter. And I'll also say this. I'll even go one step further. I believe that he's one of those guys that after he won the belt, it stepped his game up. You wrap that belt around his waist, the man instantly got 15% better. There's just some guys out there like that. It's like once they get the belt, they're like, okay, well, this is what the champ does. Now I'm the champ. I got to train this way. Now I'm the champ. I have to perform this way. Now I'm the champ. I have to make sure that I leave no stone unturned when it comes to my training. Just kind of that mindset that comes with it, because fighting is so much mental. And I just think that Jan's going to be one of those guys. He's the champ, that he immediately stepped his game up. It's going to make him better. You know, and I just want to highlight a little bit that fight with Adesanya, because, yeah, it's true. Adesanya was the much smaller man coming up from 185 to 205. We could see Jan had the power. Jan had the physical strength. He was definitely the bigger guy. But that doesn't change the fact of how skilled Adesanya is. It doesn't change the fact of just how polished and full and complete his striking game is. Anybody goes in there and does 5 rounds with Adesanya, handles his striking, actually goes on to win the fight. Very impressive. Very impressive. You go back and you look at that fight, Adesanya was able to do things in the striking department that most guys at 205 aren't able to do. Maybe nobody that Jan's ever even faced before. All the feints, the misdirection, the way he's able to slip and slide out of the way of punches. There was a section or a point in the fight early in the first round. Jan just set him up perfectly, came forward with a left hook, right hand, and Adesanya was able to make him miss by the smallest margin. Slipped out of the way of the left hook, changed direction, got out of the way of the right hand, just leaned out of it. Announcers didn't mention it, wasn't really talked about, not that big of a deal, but those are things that 205ers typically aren't able to do. That's a situation where the majority of men that Jan was facing, he would have been able to land those shots and things would have changed. Adesanya just casually slipped out of the way. No big deal. But Jan was able to make those adjustments and ended up getting the win. You know, he was biting on feints early. He was not seeing a lot of success. Adesanya was winning that department, but he went in there and made the changes and adjusted and won that fight. And that's what a champion does, man. That was a very, very impressive performance. I thought he looked really good there. Now, standing across from him, Glover Teixeira. Now, I've been an MMA fan for a very long time. I remember when Glover Teixeira came over to the UFC. It was 2011, 2012, something along those lines. Now, we had heard about him. Hardcore fans had heard about him for a long time going into that. He was Chuck Liddell's long-time training partner. Okay, now, if I remember correctly, I believe the story was Glover was up here, 2006, 2007, 2008, something along those lines. He was up here. He was helping Chuck Liddell train. Liddell was the light heavyweight champ at the time. He was in the UFC. He was the man. He was the Iceman. People loved him back then, man. He was great. And not just people, I did too. But he was one of Chuck Liddell's main sparring partners, helping him train, helping him get ready. And if I remember correctly, he overstayed a visa. He was up here from Brazil. He was on a visa. He overstayed that visa to continue to do his job, right? To continue to work, to continue to be up here with Chuck Liddell training. And then he ended up getting sent back to Brazil. I don't know if it was he went back. I don't know if it was he got caught and deported or something. I don't know any of the details around it. But I remember everybody saying he can't come back up here now. He's down in Brazil right now. He's in the prime of his career. This dude's an absolute monster. His skill set's through the roof. He can't come up here and compete. Can't happen. Because of that, the UFC wouldn't sign him. And then lo and behold, he ends up being able to come up here 2012. The UFC signs and we start to see him. Now, there were a lot of people saying at that point, I wonder if his best days are behind him. Based off of his age, things like that, wear and tear on the body. And it's kind of a sad story if that would have been the case when you think about it, like, damn, this is a guy who's very talented and we weren't able to see the best of him because of something that had absolutely nothing to do with fighting. And that's really unfortunate. So he comes over here, but there was a lot of hype and we saw he comes over here and starts to look impressive. Brazilian jiu-jitsu is nasty. He's getting guys out of there with chokes. His boxing is good head movement, heavy hands, landing shots on guys. Makes his way all the way to a title shot. Needless to say, does not go too well for him. Jon Jones is able to dominate once again like he's been able to do to basically everybody else at all times. And then, his career hits kind of this rough spot. We don't really know what's going to be left. He's starting to get up there in age. And then he goes on a run. At this point, he's just racked off a bunch of wins. He's looked very impressive. He's getting stoppages. He was getting in there against younger fighters and still coming out with these victories. Here's the thing. He hasn't always looked as impressive, though, as he has in the past. He's up there in age now, over 40 years old. No spring chicken. Gotta figure that this is going to be his last shot at the belt if he doesn't win it. So everything's out there. He's training super hard. I get all that. Great story. But we have to look back at these past fights. Okay, we got to remember what happened in that Thiago Santos fight. Yeah, he got the victory. That's great. But man, he got lit up before that. We got to remember what happened in that fight with Kuntiloba. He got the victory. Yeah, but he got rocked before that. Glover's been getting caught with a lot of shots in his last fights. He's been out there on wobbly legs doing the chicken dance in a few of these fights. Now, he's able to create a scramble. He's able to get it down. He's got this very dominant ground game. And when he gets there, he's able to do good work. He's able to get the wins. And that's impressive. But when we're handicapping fights, we have to take it all into consideration. And we have to ask ourselves, what's it going to look like when he steps in there against Jan? I have to believe that Jan's going to be able to land these same shots that everybody else has been landing. Jan is a very talented striker. He's faster. He's longer. He understands different distance. He's got an awkward striking style to him. Now, some people may take that as a negative, but it's actually a positive because it's awkward in the sense that it makes it a little bit more difficult for your opponents to prepare for. Everything doesn't come at quite the same angle that everybody else shoots it. Your timing's just a little bit different than what other guys do. If you're able to get your shots off and not get hit, hey, that's called successful. So that little bit of awkwardness, that goes a long way. Glover's out there getting caught by guys who aren't awkward. They're very talented. Thiago Santos, incredibly talented striker, so getting caught by him, no big deal. But it's like that awkwardness almost adds like another little layer of difficulty to it. Jan's beast, man. He's going to get in there. He's going to land those shots. He's got nasty power in the right hand and the left hook. Great body kick. Checks kicks really well. Throws very good kicks of his own. In my opinion, Glover's only chance would be what we've seen out of him recently. Create a scramble, try to get to a dominant position, and get it stoppage. Like Anthony Smith, just get on top position, beat his brains in. Get the choke or something along those lines. But let's not forget, Jan Blachowicz is very talented on the ground. He's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt himself. And even though if this was a straight-up jiu-jitsu match, he may not be as talented as Glover. I don't know. It isn't. It's an MMA fight. And I think he's more than talented enough to be able to hold his own on the ground and stop himself from getting submitted, particularly if the man he's facing down there is a Glover Teixeira who's already been injured from strikes. So I'm going with Jan in this one. He came out and said that he thinks he can get a stoppage in the second or third round. It really wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't. I expect him to be able to get some big shots off. I expect that power to come through. and just shine. Be the story of the day. Land the big left hook, land the big right hand. Think he gets the knockout victory and looks impressive in this one. So let me know what you guys think. Is this another defense for Jan? Does he come out and look impressive like that? Or is this Glover's Cinderella story? Is this the one where, it's the up, the down, and he eventually comes out and ends up getting the UFC belt? Let me know what you guys think.